Okay, now for you clicked on this video, share this with as many people as possible because we need to get the word out right now. We need to get the word out right now because this is a very big problem. We need to spread the word so that we can stop it in its tracks before it gets worse than it already is. Alright, with that said, let me explain to you why I want these Disney live-action remakes to stop. Why we should have no more Disney live-action remakes. Now, I wanted to state for the record that I love Disney. They have created some of the most beloved classics of all time that have been passed down from generation to generation, both animated films and live-action films. These films have become iconic, way too many to name. Peter Pan, Pinocchio, Sleeping Beauty, Little Mermaid, Parent Trap, The Love Bug, Treasure Island, Davy Crockett, Cinderella, The Jungle Book, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the film that started it all, Bambi, Mary Poppins, The Lion King, and Beauty and the Beast. The list is nearly endless of timeless and memorable films that have been passed on from generation to generation. And of course, they created the iconic characters Mickey Mouse and his friends, Minnie Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, and more. Disney recently has been expanding their entire catalog by buying out companies like Marvel and franchises like Star Wars. Well, not all of Star Wars, just the name and the future movies and several little other things. They have movies, TV shows, theme parks, iconic and treasured films, and TV channels. They exceeded what their founder, Walt Disney, dreamed of 10 times over. Well, lately they've been losing my trust. Only a smidge. Primarily because of one reason. They have been remaking their own movies. Now, it's one thing to do something different and create new experiences for your audience. It's another thing to completely sweep the original treasured films under the rug and pretend that the originals didn't happen. And that, in my mind, is unacceptable. There have been remakes before of films like Parent Trap, Flubber, and Freaky Friday, which I admit I grew up with the remake of Freaky Friday when I was a kid and actually did like it. But those are not the ones I'm referring to. I'm talking about their recent ones. Maleficent, with a decent first act origin story, but once they recreate the famous scene from Sleeping Beauty, and once you realize that the film changes Maleficent's whole character, the entire movie goes downhill. Cinderella, where the production design and costumes are award-worthy, but the film does not work in giving Cinderella a strong character. If anything, it shows why the original Cinderella is a much stronger character than in this new remake. The Jungle Book, which... okay, this is gonna sound surprising, but I actually never minded the Jungle Book remake. I mean, it's not great, but I think in terms of remakes go, it was okay. It combines elements from the original film and the original book. I will acknowledge too, but it also had other problems. Pete's Dragon, which I liked it much better than the original, it was not a musical, it had better characters, but it didn't necessarily have the best writing. A few more rewrites could have made the film much better. In Beauty and the Beast, which... I need to dedicate an entire video as to why that film is absolutely a disgrace to the original masterpiece. The point is that these remakes are being made partly because apparently there is a handful of people who can't watch animation because all they see is just cartoons on a screen. That's it. Who cares? And another reason is nostalgia. Well, my advice is that if you want to experience nostalgia, watch the originals. Why is it so hard? I understand if it was like, you know, in the 50s and 60s where the home video market wasn't around yet and the only way you could see these movies was either on TV or if it was released on a big screen for a limited time. But nowadays with VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray and streaming services, it is the best time to experience the movies that you loved as a kid. All you have to do is just go on Netflix and see if it's there. Or actually even better, just buy the DVD or Blu-ray. It really isn't that hard. And if you can actually believe it, these ones that I just mentioned aren't the last. In fact, there's more remakes coming up. Dumbo in March, Aladdin in May, and The Lion King in July. And you know what really bothers me? Not just with the Disney remakes, but any remake, is that nobody else seems to think that this is a problem. But for me, whenever I find out that a classic is being remade, it feels like I got punched in the face while getting hit by a semi-truck. Twice. Now, in case you're one of those people who don't really understand what the problem is, let me educate you, let me enlighten you, let me explain to you all why I believe that these remakes are not only bad, but they're hurting the original film's reputation. The problem with these remakes is pretty straightforward. Number one is that they add things that don't need to be added. Like in Beauty and the Beast, they add a mom getting killed by a plague subplot. They add an aspect where LeFou is in love with Gaston. They add different songs in it that don't really need to be added. This video will be too long by the time I name all the problems with that movie. They take away characters that didn't need to be removed, like the mice characters from Cinderella, but now they're just in the supporting category and they have no lines. They have the same titles as the original, so once again it confuses you to saying, for example, I want to see The Jungle Book. Oh wait, do I want to see The Jungle Book from 1943 with Cebu? Do I want to see the Disney animated Jungle Book? Or do I want to see the Disney live action Jungle Book? Too many options! And also another thing is that there just isn't enough love in these movies. With the original films, particularly Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, The Jungle Book, Dumbo, Cinderella, they were made with love. They were made with great care so that way they can get the best value possible out of their audience. They were made with really good ingredients and they took their time to present a good story. And on top of that, they have become some of the most beloved animated films of all time. In fact, Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King alone are arguably the most popular animated classics of all time. These remakes don't do these movies any favors. In fact, if anything, they just make you wish you were watching the originals instead. Now, I don't want to be all negative and say that they're all bad. There is one that was decent, and that was Pete's Dragon. The original Pete's Dragon, I couldn't stand. It wasn't a bad movie, but it was just really hard to sift through for me. The story wasn't that great, the characters were not that memorable, and the songs, with the exception of Candle in the Water, are hokey, cheerful songs that really don't do this movie any favors. And also another thing with the original Pete's Dragon is that there's a whole story arc that's missing. Where and how did Pete find Elliot the dragon? Well, in the remake, they actually fixed that problem with no songs, decent characters, and they included that missing story arc. But in turn, that movie had other issues, like some of the supporting characters and numerous other things. But at the very least, out of all of the Disney remakes, that one I think is the one that was made, decently. All the other ones have either been really bad or forgettable. And I know that kids are going to be flocking to these movies and they're going to be like, oh, I want to see Cinderella, she looks pretty. But just because they look the part and sound the part doesn't mean that they are the part. We'll get back to that. And keep in mind, people, with the exception of Dumbo, The Jungle Book, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty, these are remakes to movies that aren't even that old. Some are as recent as the 1990s. Oh, I'm sorry if you can't watch a movie from the 90s. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm sorry if the 90s was challenging for you to sift through. I mean, it's ironic how you can watch Jurassic Park, Titanic, Terminator 2, but you can't sift through Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I am so sorry. That last bit was clearly sarcastic. Sorry about that, guys. I got a little carried away. Anyway, moving on. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Are there more examples? And yes, I know that there are more examples that I can give as to what exactly do I mean by unnecessary changes. Well, allow me to give you a few more examples. First up, Cinderella. Making Cinderella able to leave the castle and the stepsisters anytime she wants, yet she chooses not to, is just dumb. Even when you consider that in the original, she was manipulated at a young age by the main stepmother after the death of Cinderella's parents, forcing her to stay out of guilt as an act of responsibility to keep a promise to her parents. You see how much more interesting that is? Look at this scene from Beauty and the Beast where Belle sacrifices herself to the Beast, letting her father go free. She just made a brave choice. In turn, you can see the intense emotions in her face and body language. And when the Beast and Belle are walking down the hallway to her room, both characters are reacting differently. Belle full of despair, and the Beast trying to be sympathetic yet at the same time losing his anger because of years of isolation, and thus he himself is not sure how to handle the situation. Animation, facial, and body movements go hand in hand. When you take the story that was already animated and adapted to live action, depending on the writing and the actor, you can lose that raw emotion and intensity. Again, with Beauty and the Beast, that same scene in the live action version. Everything that you have felt in that original classic is now gone. And now all you have is Lumiere and Cosworth pretty much just doing the acting for the main characters, which does not work. That's another reason why the originals are so special. You can feel the emotions more than live action versions. When I am watching the remake of Beauty and the Beast, I feel like I am watching a slower and semi-faster version of a film that was made originally with love and passion. I understand that these remakes try to do something different than the originals, like Pete's Dragon, how it's not a musical and it tries to explain the plot holes of the first film. I mean, if you try to copy the original film, well then you're not really being original. I acknowledge that. However, just because you add a few things in it or make the movie feel like a completely different movie, it doesn't mean that you are respecting the source material. The idea behind your reason for making the movie is beyond false. When you say that you respect the material and I see the final product like Beauty and the Beast, Alice in Wonderland, or Maleficent for example, I have a hard time legitimately believing that you actually cared about the story. The reason the original films were so good in the first place was that they were made with two things that these movies forgot about since day one: love for the story and characters, and commitment to their craft. Where is the love in these remakes? If there are any, I just don't see it. I should also point out that although these remakes aren't badly acted, I mean, some of the cast does a decent job in the parts. It does not, however, mean that they are the part. I don't want to bring up names or anything, but to kind of help you understand what I'm talking about, look at Cinderella. She may look the part and sound the part, but like I established before, she is not being the part. What made Cinderella a strong yet relatable character in the original film is completely removed here. Firstly, this new Cinderella doesn't have a backbone in her body. The fact that she can leave the castle whenever she wants, yet she chooses not to, and tolerate the stepsister's abuse because it's her father's house. And when she gets locked up in the attic, she doesn't try to escape like in the original. She just dances it off and accepts her fate like it's no big deal. And her mice friends open the window, allowing her to let her have her happy ever after. So pretty much just giving up and being saved by luck at the same time. And outside of two crying moments, all she does is just smile and be polite all the time. And when she asks why she's being abused, the stepmother says that she's good and innocent and the stepmother's bad. When in the original, Cinderella was not the stepmother's real daughter. I could go on, but my nostalgia critic made an in-depth video and everything he says is totally accurate. So I highly encourage you to watch that. Angelina Jolie, who's a good actress, does a good job recreating the famous scene from Sleeping Beauty where she spoils the blessing of Aurora, but then after that, the performance doesn't convince me that she's a sophisticated villain. Instead, going for the whole wicked route and making her more like an unsung hero rather than a sophisticated villain. And do I even need to mention the fairies? And I will admit that it wasn't her doing. She had nothing to do with that. She was at least trying, but the script and the story wouldn't let her be the Maleficent we all hope she'd be. These movies may not be hurting the box office, and these movies may not be hurting critical reviews or audience recognition. They're hurting film history. Beauty and the Beast became the first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. That is a huge accomplishment within itself. When Beauty and the Beast came around, animated films were no longer just for kids. They were for everybody. First, The Little Mermaid, then Beauty and the Beast. The Little Mermaid, speaking of which, saved Disney from the brink of collapse. Again, Cinderella, back in 1950, saved Walt Disney's studio from being shut down, primarily thanks to all those package films they made during World War II. And The Lion King became arguably the biggest animated film of all time. What I'm saying is that these movies may not be hurting ticket sales or critical reviews or anything like that. They're hurting film history. I mean, I understand why Dumbo was was being remade, because Dumbo came out in 1941, and although it's beloved for generations and it's a common image in the Disney parks, I don't hear very many people talk about it these days, so I guess it's a good idea to remind them of the character and idea of Dumbo, and I guess in some levels that's fine. Also, from what I'm seeing in the trailers, it looks like you're having it be a little different. According to what I've been reading about the story, it's actually a little bit different from the original, so I don't know. But the other ones, no. And I guess there's an excuse for Pete's Dragon and the Jungle Book, but most of them, there is no room on my shelves for these remakes. I'm not saying they're technically bad. On the contrary, they're made well with good production design, they have good visuals and have won awards, and I'm pretty sure it was well deserved, but remove those qualities for a second and you have remakes that are very shallow and don't add anything new to an already classic story. And in some cases, they're pointless, and others disrespectful. And now I should probably talk about unpopular opinions relating to these new remakes, Dumbo, Lion King, and Aladdin. Okay, with Dumbo, it seems like they're taking the original story in a completely different direction. I haven't heard Baby Mine, that song from the original. I have not seen Timothy the Mouse or any of the characters from the original film. It seems like they're gonna put their entire focus on the human characters, and that may be fine, except there's one problem. When it comes to Dumbo, realism goes out the window. But maybe it could work, I'm not sure, but I doubt it. Really, I do. And when it comes to The Lion King, you know it's gonna make so much money at the box office. So many people are gonna go see it because it's during the summer when we have the big superhero movies, when we have the Marvel and the DC and all that. Ugh. I am so fearful of that one. Sure, they may have gotten James Earl Jones from the original film back, but even so, I have no hope in that one, especially when the trailers have shown nothing but a shot-by-shot recreation of the Circle of Life opening. That's it. That's all that they showed so far. And this is by Jon Favreau, who has done really good work. He worked with Vince Vaughn and Maid and Swingers, and he's a pretty good comedic actor. He's done decent directing work, including Iron Man, and he even did a remake of A Jungle Book, which was actually okay. And I mean, it's got some decent people behind it, who's got some pretty good art under their belt, so I don't understand. Why would they remake The Lion King, the king of animated films, arguably the most popular animated film outside of Beauty and the Beast? Why would they remake The Lion King? And of course, Aladdin. Oh god, let's talk about the controversy surrounding Aladdin. First, for good. The scenery is nice, the costumes are nice, we actually see Jasmine for the first time, we see the monkey, we see the bird Iago, we actually see Jafar in this one, and we see the lion cave door, whatever it's called. But one thing, Jafar doesn't look like Jafar, and we actually see the genie for the first time. Now, if for those of you who are excited about this new genie, let me give you a warning, okay? Robin Williams as the genie was so magnificent in the way that he was able to improvise most of his dialogue, the way he was able to do improvisations, the way that he was able to portray the genie was unlike any other. And believe it or not, only Robin Williams could have done that. Only Robin Williams could have perfected the genie. It was all him. And he did a perfect job at it. And I'm not saying that Will Smith can't do a bad job. I mean, he was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he's now a dramatic actor, he's done semi-comedic parts in Independence Day and Men in Black. So he could potentially do a decent job. I'm not saying that. But the problem is his appearance. Look at this. I mean, I don't believe that the genie is really there. I don't believe it at all. The Grinch and the Cat in the Hat have the same problem. Whenever you take something that was originally animated and convert it to live action, it looks absolutely unconvincing. In animation, not only could you get away with more expressions and body movements to tell your story, but you could also be exaggerative. You could exaggerate the facial appearances, you can exaggerate the body, you could exaggerate so many things. You could have maybe a longer nose or a taller head or something. You know, there's so much you could do. When you take that to live action, it looks absolutely unconvincing, and sometimes, if you're not doing it correctly, creepy. It just does. It's absolutely unconvincing. And the way they made the genie look, I don't believe that that's the genie. I don't believe that that's the genie at all. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that this could work. I'm just not. I don't believe this could work. This looks creepy and unconvincing. And people have complained about it. I'm not the only one. People have complained about it. And hopefully they'll do something, but no matter how much you reshape it or touch on it, I don't think it's gonna work. I just don't. I'm sure Will Smith can do a good job, but the way they made him look, I'm not convinced that he obviously won't be as good as Robin Williams, but only time will tell. Maybe he'll have some good stuff up his sleeve. We'll see. We will definitely see. Updates. Yeah, as I was making this video, the newest Aladdin trailer dropped, and I will actually admit that the cinematography, set design, and costume design were all really good. At least the genie here looks a little better, and he actually does turn human in this one, so that's fine. But what is this? Why? Why? This is ugly. It's just fake. This has the same problem as the Beauty and the Beast remake. Oh my. No. Sorry. No. And you know, I get why people go see him, because they like the original story and they like the characters and all that, and that's fine, but seriously, we should seriously think about the children. They watch Frozen about 500 times in a single day. I'm pretty sure kids watch these movies all the time. I know it's hard for you guys to understand, but kids watch these movies all the time. But they're getting duped as we speak. They're getting absolutely duped by the live-action remake. They probably think it's the real one. I'm sorry, this Cinderella is not the real Cinderella. This is the real Cinderella from 1950, the one that has been cherished and passed down from generation to generation. All these classics have been passed down from generation to generation with huge benefits. I was passed down these movies. I didn't just discover Jungle Book or The Lion King or, you know, by these remakes. I mean, yeah, The Lion King remake didn't come out yet or even made yet. But even so, I watched the original cherished films. And quite frankly, I'm very proud of the fact that I am living in an age where we can discover these movies again and again. Also, I've heard that the filmmakers of these movies were trying to honor the original classic film because they loved it that much, and that's what drove them to make the remake in the first place. But personally, and don't take this the wrong way or anything, but personally, a better way to honor the original is to not remake it at all. What bothers me the most is that no one seems to think this is an issue. I am so sick and tired of people allowing this to continue. I am tired of people praising these films and acting like these films are worth watching. You know what? How many more remakes are in the works anyway? You have got to be kidding me. So, apparently, The Little Mermaid, Lilo and Stitch, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Pinocchio, and Mulan are in the works. And apparently, a Sword in the Stone remake is being discussed. You see why I had to make this video now? Please stop supporting these movies. Just stop. I explained all my reasons. If anyone's even thinking about supporting these future movies coming up, just don't. Stop. Just stop it, please. Ugh. I really hope I'm not the only one here. I know there have been other people who have commented about this, but I am so tired of this. So let's recap before we conclude, okay? These remakes add things that don't need to be added. They take away characters that don't need to be taken away. They change personalities on the main characters that we already know and love. They cast a shadow over the original film's legacy. I have no idea why people keep loving these remakes. I personally think they should like the originals more. And lastly, and most importantly, do these movies really serve any real purpose? And now, the conclusion. The truth is that I don't want to see these movies anymore. I don't want to see a remake of the same movie that was done so much better the first time around. I want to see new material. I want to see Mary Poppins Returns. I want to see Zootopia, which had memorable characters, a good story, and themes that are timeless and universal. I want to see Christopher Robin. Oh wait, I hadn't gotten to that movie yet. I want to see Coco. Oh wait, that's Pixar. But you get my point, right? I want to see different movies that challenge me, that encourage me to think, that allow me to sink my teeth into the storylines and themes and meanings and things like that. I want to see different movies, not a watered-down remake of a movie that was so great and amazing the first time around. I don't want to see another Lion King. I want to see the Lion King. Unless if it's the Broadway musical version, which I saw in Chicago as a kid, it was really, really good. I don't want to see another Dumbo, I want to see the actual Dumbo. I don't want to see another Beauty and the Beast, I want to see the real Beauty and the Beast. I don't want to see another version of Aladdin outside of all the other versions we have of Aladdin. I want to see the actual Disney's Aladdin. You get my point, right? I don't really care about these remakes. I don't want to see these movies anymore. And no, for the record, I don't hate remakes. In fact, there are some good remakes out there. I can name them all on one hand. The Fly, Scarface, and The Thing. I mean, it's a possibility. Maybe these movies are okay. It's a possibility, but I'm not gonna go near these movies. By the time I get around to these movies, I'm probably gonna either wait until they come out on DVD or some streaming service, Netflix or Hulu or something. I'm just saying, I don't want to see these movies anymore. Basically, what I'm saying is, I no longer support these films. And yes, it is fair to say that you can't judge a book by its cover, and it's also fair to say that you can't judge a movie based on its trailer. And that's true. How can you judge a movie if you haven't seen it? And I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get those comments. But the reality of it is, guys, is that why would I want to see these movies, which I'm tired of at this point, when I can go watch more meaningful movies? I just feel like watching more meaningful movies is a much better option than watching them and then just basically attacking them and berating them for no real reason. I don't want to see these movies not because of the fact that I'm judging them strictly based on their trailers and the fact that they exist. I don't want to see these movies because at the end of the day, guys, they just don't do anything for me particularly. And I'm sure they mean well, but if they do mean well, then where's the evidence? I'd prefer just to see the originals. They did a lot more for me than these remakes will ever do. They just don't serve much of a purpose to me. Oh yeah, sure, they may have some good qualities about them, but what benefit am I getting out of these movies? Very little, honestly. Whether you like these movies or not, there's something you have to understand. It doesn't matter how much money they put into these films, it doesn't matter who's involved in the production, it doesn't matter what the critical reviews say, and it doesn't matter how much money they'll make at the box office. Once the movie is out of theaters and it's released on DVD, everyone, and I mean everyone, is just gonna go back to watching the originals. That is just how this works. I know that may not always be the case, but that's just the truth with these type of things. Everyone just goes back to the originals, and nobody speaks of the remakes again, unless someone does a review on that film years later. If that's the case, then why are we allowing more of these to be made? I say, it's time we stand up and say, no more. And if you still don't fully understand, let me word it a different way. Walt Disney had always said that he wanted to make good quality content for his audience, not just in the theme parks, Walt Disney World and Walt Disneyland in California, but also on screen. He cared about the medium, he cared so much about the story and the characters, and he also cared about his audience, and he also knew how to deliver. If Walt himself was still alive today, I do not think that he would have approved of these remakes. I don't think he would have even approved of the thought of his movies being remade in live action. I don't think he would have even greenlit these movies. So, if a man himself wouldn't approve, then why should I? Now look, I'm not saying that by the end of this you have to agree with me or be on my side or anything. All I ask is that you just sit there and listen. And don't get me wrong, I will always love Disney, and they have done some really good work. And, you know, if the company had started with a mouse, I don't want this to be their downfall. It's just all I'm saying. I care about the company. I care about people whenever they talk about Cinderella, The Jungle Book, Sleeping Beauty, Dumbo, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. You know, I don't want them to think of the remakes. I want them to think of the originals. You know, I don't want them to be duped by these remakes anymore. And I've watched all the remakes up to this point. I'm just tired of them. I'm tired of defending these remakes. I tried to defend them for a long time, and when I saw Beauty and the Beast, I was stunned. I was shocked at how you could take such a beloved movie and suck all the life out of it, all the love and care out of it, and just made a slow, somehow semi-fast at parts, you know. It was like no thought went into it. And look, If you're still convinced in seeing these movies, that's fine. Don't let me stop you. But before you go see these new remakes, there's something I want you to think about, and it's gonna put everything I said in this whole video in context, okay? In 20, 30 to 80 years from now, and for generations to come after that, which of these will you remember the most? The original, timeless, animated films that have already been passed down from generation to generation that were made with love, care, and passion, or the live-action remakes that take away stuff, add stuff, and are only popular just for the moment. Think about that. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for listening.